Beauty products, events management, musical showcases, all different. But entrepreneurship, that's what the young women we are profiling today have in common. Fear and hurdles that needed overcoming. Learning curves so great they came close to failure. Instead of giving up, they've let their deep sense of passion motivate and educate them in how to run a viable business. What does Carol Nyazika, Ruziwo Chonyera, Elina Chipuma, and Chieza Dana have in common? Apart from them being young female entrepreneurs, it is their desire to build, create, and learn that defines them. Carol knows that the beauty and cosmetics industry has largely been dominated by a small number of multinational corporations, and into this enter Danaka Cosmetics.
I'm Carol Nyazika, and I am the founder of Danaka, which is a skincare and hair care product. My role in the company is to formulate the products, manufacture, and deal with the distribution contracts and partnerships within the company. We officially started selling January 2017, end of January, so maybe possibly February 2017. That's when we officially started. So I was in the UK for about 10 to 11 years, and I always wanted to come back. I studied formulation when I was in the UK, and when I was there, they would tell us that there's so many exotic products, or ingredients actually, that are found in the southern region of Africa. And these are like your baobab oil, your marula oils, and so forth. And then I would always come back in between my studies to kind of figure out, like, is anyone really growing and then extracting and then selling these finished ingredients, which are your oils.
While studying, she started dreaming of a homegrown Zimbabwean line of cosmetics for the person who desires indigenous products, tailored for the person who wants to maintain a natural look.
So through my studies, I then discovered Mafura butter, which is indigenous to Zimbabwe, but everyone just talks about shea butter and cocoa butter, but no one's talking about Mafura butter, which is really good for your skin and your hair. So with that, I knew I wanted to come back to Zimbabwe and start the brand, because no one that I knew was doing it at the scale that I wanted to grow a finished product from Zimbabwe too. So I didn't want to just sell a product within Zimbabwe. I wanted it to be known that it's from Zimbabwe, but grow internationally, because I hadn't seen anything like that. And the people that were extracting the oils were exporting them to countries like the UK or South Africa and so forth. And no one was really pushing a brand that was taking the indigenous ingredients and making a complete product from it. So that was my motivation when I came back. And then I came back in 2016, and then I was working at that time for a fintech company. And then just to kind of feel how it is to work in Zimbabwe and to really understand what happens, how to do things. So that really helped when I set up my company. And then I left the company after 6 months to start my own business. And it wasn't a matter of, is this the right time in the economy? It was a matter of, I want to do something for the economy. So it wasn't like the economy was going to set me back. It was just, how am I going to maneuver and create what I wanted to create within the space that I was in.
As a business operating in the information and internet age, Carol has taken advantage of various social media platforms to build her brand. Blogging about her various products and having a strong, solid presence on YouTube has been part of her marketing tools.
When I started the product or the brand, I only started with about $300. And then I went to South Africa, got my ingredients, got my packaging, and combined them with ingredients that I could find locally. So because it's like a results-driven brand in terms of the products that we formulate, you can't get all the ingredients locally, so you have to combine it with ingredients from different parts of the continent. Because of that, right, and because people already knew me in the beauty space, I used to work for a makeup brand when I was in the UK, so people already knew I was in the beauty space, and they were just waiting to see what I was coming up with, because I used to be on YouTube Still am on YouTube. That's where people started figuring out that I'm in this space and I was giving people information. So when I would do my YouTube videos, I couldn't really tell people what to use because I was now using my own products that I'd formulated. So people were anticipating that, okay, what is this brand? You know, when are you going to launch it? And I had a blog as well. So Ndanaka, the name had been there since the blogging days. So that's why people think the brand has been there longer than it actually has been.
And the reception was exceptional.
So in terms of reception, people gravitated to the brand because they were anticipating it before, because I'd been building it up for a while. But then the true test came when people were repurchasing. So I had no problem with people actually purchasing initially because we sold out in the first 4 days. So I had no problem with actually knowing if the product was going to sell or not because people were waiting for it. But the true tests of how good the product was the repurchasing from people who had already purchased the product. So from that's when I was like, okay, I actually have something here because people are coming back and actually buying the product again and then telling their friends, or they would buy more than one. So they would buy more than one face oil, maybe they'll buy 3 at a time, and then would sell out again. And then we kept selling out until we got retailers, and then the retailers would sell out. So that's when I really started thinking like, okay, this is actually growing faster than I expected. And it was a true measure of just the capabilities that we have in terms of formulation and what our formulation was actually doing, because then people were then sending us the befores and afters, and you know, people were then motivated to cut their hair because they found the product that actually works to manage their hair better, and then people were buying it for their friends, and then it just grew from that. And then we don't do offline marketing. We just do online marketing, which is our social media, because that's where I came from and that's how people knew me. So we literally grow the brand from our social media presence. And then from there, then other countries started getting a hold or knowing about it. And then, you know, people live in different parts of the continent or the world. With us being Zimbabweans, people in South Africa, people in Zambia, people in different countries. So that's how then the brand started growing outside of Zim, because people would purchase it for their friends or they're using it, and then word of mouth started going around, and then that's just how the market has taken it.
1 out of 99 problem. I'ma hype it up for my progress. Never gonna stop, never resisting. Them haters in the damn work process. 1 out of 99 problem.
For most young people, starting their own businesses means leaving behind job security. Carol says the trade-off is flexibility and the freedom to pursue one's dreams. For her, it was not so much looking at what the economy could do for her as wanting to do something for the economy.
I always tell people that don't look for employment to get paid initially, because you still need to gain the expertise, you still need to gain an understanding and so forth. So if you can just go and do something in the industry that you're interested in, just because people are not hiring, right? People don't have money to hire, but you can offer your services for free. You can even just say, okay, I'll come in twice a week or something, just to get an understanding, just to be in the space that people are in, just to gain that expertise, because you don't know when the economy is going to shift, and you don't know when things are going to change for your benefit. So you need to have built up some form of resume or some sort of experience to then be able to then command what you deserve, because people just want to get paid, but it's like, okay, but what have you done? So I have to then start from scratch to pay you so much money when you haven't done anything. You have no experience. You don't know what you're doing, pretty much. And then for people who do have the experience, I always just say, you know what, start from somewhere. Again, give your services, because you just don't know where that could lead you, because someone might see you so valuable and actually hire you. But then it's the fact that people are just so quick to just want to get paid. And then on top of that, you get paid and then you're not doing the job. Or you start a business and you're not doing the business basics. And the business basics is like, okay, if you're going to say you hire out something, hire it out. I should be able to call you, and you should be able to answer the phone. You should have a schedule. You should have access. People should just have access to you. You should be reliable. You should be able to just do what you say you're going to do. And I feel like a lot of the time people don't do that in Zim. And people are just so ready to take your money, but they're not giving the value addition that's required. You know, if you're doing customer service, customers are the ones that are giving you money. So if you are providing something, provide it, because at the end of the day, you need these people to come back. So a big thing is people don't, like if you have a social media business like mine, you're not responding to DMs, you're not responding to comments, you're not engaging with people, you're just there.
And her advice to those searching for opportunities.
If you're at home and you're not doing anything, there's always a space to start from. There's always something that you can do, whether it's for free or whether it's to gain experience, but always look past the situation at the moment and understand the economy, that people don't have the money, so they're going to give you what they can afford, but then you should look past that to say, okay, where is this going to take me? Where do I want to go? What can I do? How can I use this experience for my advantage? Yeah, and don't always go to people asking them what they can do for you, but go and ask them what you can do for them instead. That gives more value than just saying, oh, well, you need to pay me this, and I need to get this, and I need to do this. It doesn't work in this economy. And you just have to really think outside the box, and as much as that is difficult, but it's being around the industry that you want to be in to understand what's really going on. But the biggest thing is to just get experience whichever way you can, because that will help you when you start your business or when you go into employment.
For some people, there comes a moment in life where they realize that what they are currently doing is not what they want to do for the rest of their lives. For Ruzivo, when the realization struck that she wanted to be her own boss, she didn't hesitate, and Raw Consultancy, where she is a co-founder, came into being.
So for me, with Raw Consultancy, we do marketing, business development, and events. And with events, we have been known to coordinate functions that function. Our functions are different in that we put a different flavor to each event. We realize that each event has its own life, each client has its own heartbeat, and we try to the best of our abilities to ensure that the client gets the maximum service from us. So excellent service is our priority.
So how does one get into event management? You need to identify whether your skills are right for event planning. Identify your target market. Develop your business plan. Tackle the legal side of your business and obtain startup funding. Ruzivo says no one promises it will be easy, but it can be done.
Selling yourself is interesting, because when you start out, people do not believe in you. They don't know what you're capable of achieving, and the trust level is just not there. So there was an interesting hindrance to get into that space and in that market. You're competing against giants, companies who've been in that space for a very long time. But what they don't have, which we have, is our personalized service. I'm not saying a personalized service, I'm saying our. The way we do our work, we don't compete. That's what I'd like to believe. We're not in competition when we get to that space. It's like saying, this is who I am. I believe that the Raw service is particular to Raw. No one else can replicate it. People can consult, people can coordinate functions, but you cannot replicate the Raw experience, which is what I think we're selling, the ultimate Raw experience. And we have had hiccups. We've had times when we didn't have enough events or enough people coming to us for asking for us to do their work. So we've had quiet months. We've had months where we're going like, what are we doing? Should we go and look for jobs? So we've had those months. And yet we've had months where we're busy every single day of the week, where we cannot breathe, where we're working until midnight, where we're working until 1 a.m. to deliver projects. And they're different projects. And we're getting in other people to help us to get the work done. An economy like Zimbabwe requires one to be innovative. The space that we're in, where we have lots of graduates coming out of university and yet have nowhere to work and nowhere to go, requires innovation. It requires us going back to the core business of what made Zimbabwe tick so many years ago. The agribusiness is an interesting part of our nation. I know I'm not in that agribusiness, but to tell you the truth, agriculture and the industries that follow in the value chain create so many interesting things. You can make juice out of fruits. You can rear cattle or goats or chicken or, there's so many things. But beyond that, you can make peanut butter. I know someone who's doing an amazing work with peanut butter and has been, expanding into the stores and all of that. And that's great. So if you're not a farmer, maybe you are the person who needs to take from the farmer and ensure that you are making a product out of it. You could make cheese. We have interesting shortages in this country. we don't have enough soya if we go back to farming. There's so much that one can do, but let's go back. I'm not that, right? I followed my passion. Follow your passion and let that lead you to what will pay you. Sometimes we're going to university and learning to be something we think is a great title and will pay us X amount of money, but it's not the reality. The reality is if you're very passionate about something, even when doors are closing, you will push. So it's not just what you went to learn kuchikoro, it's what you actually love doing. I love speaking. If you give me this flow, we'll talk and talk and talk, right? So it's not just what you went and learned kuchikoro, it's what you actually love doing. It's who you are. And if it's who you are, no matter what the economy is saying, no matter what is going on, you will always push for who you are because you are alive. So I would say start thinking of ways to innovate, simple ways. Start thinking of businesses. Look at how mobile money transfer has gone viral. I know EcoCash has taken a big portion of that platform, but there are still ways that one can make money. Look at how it's difficult to get fuel. Create an app. Monetize it. Create an app. I know there's a website that's telling people where to get fuel and all of that. So in the ups and downs of the economy, innovate around it. That is how you can survive as an entrepreneur, because we are at a space where young people should be thinking about creating jobs for themselves first. So you can be a sole trader, really. So initially we want them to create jobs for themselves. So even if you're the only person in your office, start there. And even if it's not an office. So I think sometimes people stop because they assume, I need to be in an office. It needs to be a big desk. I'll be very honest with you, I spend less than 4 hours in the office a week because this is not where I work. I work with people. I drive to people's offices, I knock on doors, they open and we work. That is how it works. So don't be pulled back because you don't have an actual space, an office that you can sit and say, this is my space. It's there because we need it, but not because I need to be in it. I need to be with the people. So depending on what you want to do, make freezers. There's so much, there's so many things. I know people who are doing amazing television shows, for example, people who are creating content. We need content, not just for Zimbabwe, but for Africa. If you can get your content to MultiChoice, we have amazing producers in this country. We have amazing people in the arts industry. The creative industry is booming. There's so much one could do in that line. So don't worry about the day that you actually have your I beg to apply letter replied. Yeah. Start thinking about selling. Look at the innovators in Zimbabwe who've begun to make makeup lines. Because for so long, Zimbabwean women have been supporting makeup lines from all over the world.
Business partnerships can be tricky, but not for Chiedza and Elina, who have half a decade under the belt, being co-founders and co-directors of Unplugged Zimbabwe, a musical showcase.
Hi, my name is Chiedza Dana, and I'm one of the co-founders and co-directors of Unplugged Zimbabwe.
And I'm Melina Chipuma. I'm also one of the co-founders and co-directors of Unplugged Zim. Unplugged is a live music event that's held monthly here in Zimbabwe, and basically it showcases up-and-coming talent in Zimbabwe as well as established acts in a family-friendly setting.
So our first Unplugged event took place in December of 2013, and we were really motivated primarily by a shared passion for music and the arts. We wanted to see music in a family-friendly environment, outdoors, and we really wanted to try and connect more with artists that we weren't able to see on other big stages in Harare. So we sat down one day on a Saturday afternoon and decided that we were going to put together an event, and exactly a month later we did.
As the pair has realized, there are some tricks to running a successful partnership. There has to be a shared vision and mission, because if all brains aren't going in the same direction, in the same way, problems may arise. They have to make sure that each partner's needs and expectations are addressed and identify and utilize the strengths of each partner. With 5 years of running this business, they've advice for aspiring entrepreneurs.
Single most important thing, I think, would be resilience. I think that once you have a vision, you have to stick to it, and you're inevitably going to come across different obstacles. I think that's whatever industry you're in, whatever business you're in, whatever your dream is, you are going to come across obstacles, and you just have to try and constantly think, innovate around how to get past those and stick to your dream. Don't give it up. In terms of employment, the one thing that I would say to a lot of parents who are going to be out there watching this is, if you discover that your child is particularly talented musically, if they have a great eye for sculpture, if they're a great fine painter, whatever it might be, something that's artistic, I would say try to help them to nurture that skill and that craft. I think the time has passed when, we still take a very narrow view about how adults actually earn incomes. The traditional professions are still very respectable, but I think there's a lot of other non-conventional professions that are also highly respectable. And I think that if we encourage young people to follow this path, that's the only way that we can develop creative industry in this country.
Running Unplugged Zimbabwe has not been without its challenges, according to the pair. It has, however, withstood the ups and downs and is today not only a source of livelihood for the two co-founders and co-directors, but also for thousands of people in the value chain.
One of the biggest challenges was financial. The capital to start the event itself. We were hoping would rely on sponsors from our very first event, which we realized the hard way that it does not work that way. So one of our hugest challenge was obviously the capital. Eventually sponsors came on board, but this is like 3 years later when the brand was built and people trusted the brand. Another huge challenge we had was weather. There's nothing we can do about that anyway, because it is an outdoor event. It happens every month, and 3/4 of the time in Zimbabwe it's raining. Wow. But somehow unpluggers love coming to Unplugged in the rain, so it's a challenge, but it's not as bad as we thought. What other challenges did we have?
Performance spaces.
Oh yes, venues. Venues are a huge challenge. In the beginning, it worked fine because we had lots of venues we could use because of space. Now that the event is bigger, everyone tends to bring their own car. So in terms of parking space, in terms of the space that people are actually going to sit and where the stage will be, that is still a huge challenge. So we probably have about 1 or 2 venues which are adequate, I guess, enough for the crowds that we bring right now. But yeah, that's still an ongoing challenge. Directly Unplugged employs close to 60 people who come for the event every month. And indirectly, in terms of our supply chain, vendors, everyone who comes, I think it amounts to close to 200 people every month at the event.
And in terms of within that supply chain, I mean, it's cross-cutting. So we have people who are in hospitality, so people who are doing food and drinks. We have lots of food and drinks vendors that are at Unplugged. We have people who are in, event and logistics supply. So all of our tents, we outsource. Our stage and sound, we outsource. What other things do we outsource? Essentially, as an organization, part of our policy was that we are not going to ourselves invest in a lot of the infrastructure that's required to put an event together. And the reason for that was so that we can create employment for people who are already in the business and give them monthly work, really. And we have some suppliers that we've been working with for all of the 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
And we're really proud to see their growth as well. The fact that now, because they're known for doing Unplugged, they're able to sell their services way beyond, I think, the pool of customers that they had previously. So that's great too.
Maybe your first business idea was not profitable. Maybe you think it will be easier to wait until the economy is performing better. Or maybe you are waiting for a gentle nudge from the universe that you need to create your own financial security. These aren't legitimate reasons to keep you from following your passion, according to our entrepreneurs. These young women are showing that some risks are worth taking, and as a young person, you can be out there innovating and creating jobs.
Yeah, I'ma hype it up for my progress. Never gonna stop, never resist. Telling them haters is a damn boring process. 1 out of 99 problems. I'ma hype it up for my progress. Never gonna stop, never resist. Telling them haters is a damn boring process. 1 out of 99 problems.
I don't wanna die, me want to live long time. I pray that all my demons don't come back knocking for me at the wrong time. On my knees say, mama, won't you pray for me? Cause I know that you're the one that's down for me, mama, you gon' love me long time. I'ma step up onto my grind.
I'ma hype it up for my progress. Never gonna stop, never resist. Telling them haters is a damn boring process. 1 out of 99 problems. I'ma hype it up for my progress. Never gonna stop, never resist.